Today's guest is Adam Povlitz. After starting in the family business and working his way up, he's the CEO and president of Anago, a tech-driven commercial cleaning franchise using preventive analytics to disrupt the commercial cleaning and disinfecting industry. But what is really fascinating to me is that, Adam, your company mission is so much more than that. You're in this entrepreneur making business. You're helping aspiring business owners create financial freedom, create freedom of time, and build ties to their local community, all while building a tech-forward, leading-edge service in what has proven to be a recession-resistant, always in-demand business. You also post about innovation, you write about culture, you've been published in Entrepreneur Magazine and Forbes and other industry pubs. Welcome, Adam. Please start us off by telling us a little bit about why you're passionate about innovation culture and building entrepreneurs.
Hey, Elizabeth, thank you for having me. You forgot that I also make a really good chicken parmesan in that.
I wasn't going to reveal that right away.
No, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, I started at Anago in 2009, and I've always been a geek, and it turns out that worked out. Maybe it didn't work out in middle school, high school, but geeks rule the world now. And I think it's just I've always had that focus on technology and streamlining things. That's just something I've been passionate about. But it was probably not until I got to Anago, and it's a weird model, right? It's a franchise commercial cleaning model. Most franchises that your listeners are probably familiar with are a two-tier model. The corporate office of McDonald's, and then the people who own the restaurants. Ours is a three-tier model, which is unique to our industry, but it's enabled us to we have over 45 master franchisees, and then 1,800 unit franchisees across the US and Canada. And so it's very cool to be able to help put people into business. Hello, I need to My 4-year-old came in to make an
on
intro.
Our podcast. Thank
And
you. I'm going to start interviewing him in a minute.
Yes.
If you're not.
Excuse me, baby. Go to mama. We have extra guests. You get 2 for the price of 1. So that's Parker. That's my 4-year-old. But yeah, so we've been able to put over 1,800 people into business, and it's so cool to be able to say, when someone comes up to you and says, hey, I was able to put that down payment on my house because of this Anago business, or I was able to put my daughter through college because of this Anago business. It's beyond rewarding to be able to have that. And so then it's very self-motivating. You're like, all right, who else can we get into business today? How can we make this better for them? And we really feel like we're helping people live the proverbial American dream of business ownership.
That's awesome. So I'm not familiar with this sort of 3-tier model that you talk about, but maybe that'll help. One of the questions I want to ask you is innovation and having an innovative culture. It can be hard to replicate that. And it's something specifically in the franchise business, you're all about replication. So how do you approach that of ensuring that this culture that you've built and are fostering, how does that get passed on through your model?
So I think particularly innovation, the culture of innovation has to come from the top down. And I've been meeting with some folks about improving some of the aspects of our marketing as an example. And one of the things they told me, they said, we've worked with CEOs before where they're gung-ho about marketing and man, we got to do all we can. Marketing is the engine. And then we've worked with CEOs where they don't know anything about marketing. They don't really understand. They don't really care. And they're going like, you guys just do whatever you feel like you need to do the marketing. We're going to run the business over here. I feel like in order, particularly with marketing and just like that, as well as anything innovation, you have to live it and breathe it at the top. And that is the culture. People initially probably were super annoyed, but I don't even there's a little bit of tech shaming that we do where if someone comes into a meeting with me with a notebook instead of a laptop, I'm like, oh, are you sure that's the device you want to use? But it's every day, and I tease, obviously we don't shame people or anything like that, but it's also when you see someone with a notebook as the CEO, you go, hey, have you used this software? Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Let me get down with you for 5 minutes, 10 minutes and show you some of the stuff I'm using. And then that becomes something that when they're meeting with their team, they're going to go, hey, Adam just showed me this new tip or trick or software or whatever. And it's just constantly doing that. And then I think we do a decent job and we're constantly looking to improve, but I think we do a decent job at messaging to our franchisees about the technology. We have a probably way more. I've probably spent way more on franchise technology than I'd like to admit. But then it's constantly getting out in front of your franchisees and saying, "Hey, have you used this latest thing on the software? Have you seen this update?" We actually even hired a product enablement specialist where that their whole job is meeting with our franchisees and saying, "Hey, we're seeing that you're not logging into such and such software. How can we help you, train you, give you like a white glove service so you
Yeah.
understand? Because if you're not using it, you're missing out." And so it's
Yeah.
just being very focused on making it easier because I'm a natural nerd. I love it. I'm always on the hunt for new technology, but I also understand that I'm like a little bit of an outlier, and that's probably not as common. Most people are the what do you call it? The late adopter, or maybe if they understand it maybe, but most people fall into those categories, especially in cleaning, right? Cleaning and technology sounds like jumbo shrimp. It sounds like an oxymoron or something. So it's just not an area where you would traditionally think technology. So it is something where we're just constantly messaging on it and training on it and making it something that's always drawn to the forefront of our franchisees' lives.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have to say, though, coming from a technology background myself, I am a fan of the old-fashioned notebook, and I know a lot of tech execs who are, simply because probably because it's the opposite problem. It's like you're constantly bombarded with new tech and different apps, and you've got a million things open. Like the one thing that you have more control over is a notebook. But I will 100% admit, even my own preference, the fault of notebooks are really hard to be searchable. So usually the good stuff goes into some app or some tool so I can fit it later. But I like the forcing function to be simple. So you bring up a good point that you're bringing technology to an industry that maybe isn't known for being technology forward. What is one thing you would like people to know about? You've been in this business for a while. You've been in this industry for a while. What's something you would like people to know about your industry and maybe debunk a myth or theory or wrong conception out there?
There's a lot. There's a lot of those. There's a lot of those. I'll keep it in the tech theme. So we're not innovating in terms of the technology on the cleaning, right? There's no rocket science behind the technology and the cleaning. Yes, there's the introduction lately of autonomous robots and AI, but that
Mm.
we're a ways away from having like Rosie the robot come in and clean your office. But that said, we decided that we wanted to go in a different route. And when I say that we're the technology leader in the commercial cleaning space, I'm not saying we have a better mop and bucket. I'm not saying we have a fancier vacuum. All my competitors can get the same equipment that I can. What we've done that I feel is different and gives us a bit of an edge is we've invested all the technology in the customer service side of the cleaning business. Let me give you an example. In I used a restaurant as an example earlier. You go to a restaurant, you can have one of three experiences, right? A good experience, good food, good service, right? A bad experience, food is cold, waiter's a jerk, or just one of those like, middle of the road, whatever kind of experiences. In cleaning, there are only two. Nobody has the, "Oh my goodness, my janitor's so amazing, I'm gonna get them a birthday present." Just doesn't happen. What happens is you either get to the office, if you're working in office, and you go, "I gotta get to work," and you don't think about the cleaning, or
Hmm.
you get to the office and you go, "Why is my trash can still full?" And like, "Why does the bathroom stink?" Or so you end up having either just that non-memorable experience or a bad experience. And so we realized that we have to use, as I'm sure you've heard a million times, right? Where with people, when people leaving online reviews or anything like that, that's your opportunity to make a friend and make it right. And so we realized that like we're not going to get a compliment every day about how wonderful we are.
Yeah.
We can say my pleasure as often as we'd like, but we're not. No one's going to love us because we don't have French fries. But at the same time, we go, okay, there's pros to this business is that right it's very because of the very heavy human element in the business is you're not going to outsource this business to China. Amazon's not coming to town to replace us, but at the same time we're all humans make mistakes, and so we have to program in the reality that those mistakes are going to happen and then say, okay, if the default speed for a customer is I just got to work. I don't want to think about the cleaning. Then how do we
Hmm.
take a pain point, a bad experience, and use that to make a friend? And so we created a software that's proprietary to us. It's called CleanCalm. And if you have an issue with a cleaning that occurs in your building and you're with Anago, take out your phone, you go to myAnagoClean.com, you log in, you take a picture of whatever your dirt is. You can put whatever room it's located in, that's the office, it's the break room, whatever.
Mm.
You put a note, and now all of this is communicated privately. You're not exchanging cell phone numbers, but it sends it automatically to the franchisee that's servicing your office. You can type it in your native language. They can respond in theirs. It has built-in Google Translate. It has
Nice.
a 2-hour response guarantee, so you will be responded to very quickly. And then to really put a bow on it, it has what we call preventive analytics built into it. So what happens is if, say, a franchisee, there's 3 complaints that this franchisee had, maybe from one office, maybe from 3 different offices about, say, cleaning restrooms. We're able to have the master level franchisee see that in real time and be able to go, hey, wait a minute, let me bring this guy back in and give him a retraining on how to
Mm.
properly service restrooms before it becomes a larger issue. And so the idea is that ultimately people are going to make mistakes, but it minimizes repetitive mistakes, speeds up time to communication and time to resolution. And so for us, what it's done is it's actually helped cut our attrition into less than half of what the industry average is.
Wow. So you're taking behind the scenes business and then behind the scenes of that's where you're optimizing and creating efficiencies through tech. That's pretty cool. Nice.
Exactly.
Okay. You talk and write some about leading with empathy and clear communication and why that's so important in your company. Can you expound on that a little bit and maybe share some examples of how that's really made a difference or anytime that may have backfired?
I think I was in the early part of my time as CEO. I would say the first handful of years, I was just learning how to CEO. Let's turn that into a verb, right? And I would say it really was during COVID where, in our industry, luckily, right, because we were considered an essential industry, and obviously you don't get rid of the janitor when you think there's germs in the building. You go, we need
Right.
more janitors. But it happened to be a very obviously chaotic for everyone. But for us, it was, man, I remember I was on the phone with our entire franchise system twice a week going,
Mm.
here's what we know, here's what we don't, here's what we're waiting on, here's the latest, here's where that shipment of whatever product
Yeah.
is, just constantly communicating. And then it turned into something where it was, okay, here's what we're going to do. We had to quite literally pivot from, that forgettable, hey, we're a cleaning company and you don't want to think about us, to we're front and center and we have to become disinfection experts in 90
Yeah.
days. We quite literally had to create we actually used a person who was I forget who, I think it was a professor at a university to help create, we were the only certified disinfection program in the country at the time. And you're scrambling. So you're like, we had to get all hands on deck, rowing in the same direction at the same time to create this new program, roll it out to 1,800 franchisees, to tens of thousands of customers. And it was like, oh, and you have 90 days to do it. And that was probably too long, frankly, back then. And so you see, number one, you see how much your customers and your franchisees really just need to know what's going on, whether it's in a COVID time where it's more crisis, or right now where there's no real crisis or anything like that. Yeah, there's always whatever political soap operas that are going on, but it's yes, here are the things going on in the political atmosphere. Here are the things that we're focused on. Here are the things that we're innovating on, getting feedback from them and understanding like what are their pain points and like how could we address them. Number one is just having that dialogue on a regular basis, and then number two, it's just how much vision casting it really takes to move a big ship and all of a sudden turn 180 degrees very quickly. It's communicate, over communicate, and communicate some more.
100%. I'm not going to argue with that one for sure. Former English major myself, I'm a big fan of clear communication. When you are thinking about your journey as a CEO, I know you came up through the business. You were front and center for a lot of this, and you knew what you were walking into. But if you have to go back and give your younger self some advice, what would it be as you started on that CEO journey?
One of the things that I wish I would have done was I wish I would have been more comfortable in hiring for senior leadership.
Mm.
The word I wouldn't use is the first word that always triggers in my mind was like, were you afraid to do it? And it wasn't afraid. It was just I was extremely uncomfortable. How
Mm.
do I hire a chief marketing officer? How do I hire an IT director? What the heck do I know about IT? And a little funny story on that is, so I happened to go, I asked the pastor at my church, they were during COVID, they were growing, they were like the eighth fastest growing church in the country. And I happened to be on one of their financial oversight board, and I was talking to him, and I was like, "You're doing a really great job on growing this, and you always, when you hire staff, they've always been home runs. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Now, granted, you have a very different mission than I do, right? I'm cleaning buildings, you're saving souls, right?" I'm like, "So I get that there's a little bit more allure to join you than me, but what do you do?" And he told me a book. It's called Who by a guy named Jeff Smart. I don't get any rebates or anything from him, but just life change. I literally put it in my Amazon cart, and shame on me, I didn't actually click buy until like 6 months later. And finally I read it, and it was such a like page turner on, it was the exact process they recommend to build a job description, to build the ad, what questions to ask at what levels of interview. And it applies, you have to massage it a little bit, but it applies everywhere. And I really was like, it was like buying, my wife jokes that I even say this. She goes, I said it was like the first time I bought Lululemon pants. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've been buying pants wrong my whole life. They're so comfortable. What have I been doing?" I go, "Oh my gosh, I've been hiring wrong my whole life. This is, wow, what an eye opener." Because a lot of times you're just hiring based on like gut and feel, and did I jive well with the person, and not really trying to understand a track record and a pattern and practice. And since reading that book, I've hired probably 9 director and up level people over probably maybe a 2.5 year period, where I was
Mm,
like, I guess it showed me that anytime I reached one of those plateaus or inflection points where I was like, we need to get past this point, I'm someone who naturally is, I got to make the wheel rounder, the process smooth. And the
mhm.
reality for me was that it wasn't a process problem, it was a person problem. I needed that person that I could put in that position to be the champion, to really drive whatever that initiative was forward. And if I would have done that, man, I would have told myself 10 years ago, start now. Here's a
Yeah.
book you need to read. Start
Read this
now.
before you
You'll
need
be, yeah,
it.
you'll be way further ahead if you did that.
Nice. I haven't come across that book. Now I'm curious to pick it up. I'm a big fan of Dan Sullivan's Who Not How, if you've
Yeah,
read that one. Yeah, which
yeah,
is all about the why you need to hire that
right.
who.
And
But
this
this
is how
sounds
to hire them.
interesting. Yeah, how you actually do it. That's great. All right. Good double recommendation there. Perfect. Okay. Another question on just through your journey. I'm sure you've gotten some really great advice and you've gotten some really terrible advice. How do you filter that? And maybe you can share some examples of some really good or really bad advice you've received along the way.
One of the things I tell particularly our master franchisee level folks is, these are all big businesses, right? A master franchise in our business will own, Metro Atlanta, and there's 6 million people in their franchise territory, which is unheard of in
Mm,
the franchising industry. And I said, listen, you're gonna put that president next to your name because you're the president of your franchise, and all of a sudden your LinkedIn is gonna light up.
yeah.
And everyone and their mother is going to have something they're selling to you, or hey, we want you to be in our round table, or hey, it's gonna be it's going to distract you, and it's going to just be volumes, and you're going to get spams and all that. And I said, I probably need to adjust these numbers for inflation, but I used to say, you think about it like when you go to the attorney and I'll adjust the numbers, but it used to be smaller. But it was like, hey, you have the paralegal and they're $200 an hour, and you have the junior attorney and they're, I don't know, $400 an hour, and then you have the senior attorney and they're probably now $600 or $800 an
Yeah.
hour. Um, I want you to think of your time like you are the $800 an hour attorney. And everything that comes at you, you're going to get stuff thrown at you from every direction. Everyone's going to want something for you, want something from you. And you have to run it through the filter of, is this worth $800 an hour? And if it's not, you need to start thinking, wait a minute, is there someone I can hire to do this? Is there someone I can outsource this
Right.
to? Because if it's not, if it doesn't contribute $800 worth of value and you're the CEO of a company, it's probably not something you should be doing, and it's just busy time. And that was a good piece of advice I got. And I don't remember who gave me that one. The former CEO of Anago gave me a good piece of advice. When he left, first of all, when he left, he was a guy from West Virginia by way of Texas. And so he had this wild country accent on him. I'm not going to do it justice, so I'm not going to try to repeat it. But he had some sayings. And one of the things he said was, when you're in the desert, dirty water is better than no water. And I like that because we've all been through these tough periods and we've all been through busy times in our lives. And sometimes you have to acknowledge where you are. And if you are in one of those deserts of life, sometimes you gotta just keep drinking and get your way through. And in cleaning speak, we say, make sure they clean the building before you take away the keys. It's sometimes, a lot of times people want to make a quick decision and it's like a knee jerk decision. And sometimes it's, let me play this out on a decision tree and slow roll this deliberately while I tee myself up for success. My dad used to say, I never heard my grandfather say it, but he said it, my grandfather said it. He said, hasten slowly, which means pick up speed, pick up momentum, but in a way that's slow enough and calm enough where it doesn't upset your inner cool. And so it's building momentum, knowing when you're in those desert phases, but also not pulling the trigger on so many things so quickly that it upsets your inner cool. And I think I just blended like 6 pieces of advice in there.
I love that though, but it comes down to the Navy SEALs is that smooth is slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I think that's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
really good takeaway from that. That's actually a really good note to wrap on. So Adam Povlitz at Anago Cleaning, if people want to find you, where can they find you?
Sure. So our website is anagocleaning.com. We're on every social media and it's always like at Anago Cleaning. And then if anyone wants to shoot me a note, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So just type in Adam Povlitz on LinkedIn and shoot me a note and I'll be sure to get back to you.
Thank you.